He found out about my affair with a colleague at a corporate party and attacked him. My name is Ashley, I'm 33, and I'm married to Justin, who is 34. My husband and I have been married for about 6 years and have one child, who I'll call Max. He's about 5. My husband and I have known each other all our lives. We've been through a lot, and I thought I'd share some of those experiences here with you. My husband was involved in an incident at a corporate party where he was physically assaulted by a colleague I had an affair with. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, and I'm still trying to make sense of it all. Justin and I have known each other practically forever. We grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same schools, and shared a lot of memories. But it wasn't until after college that we started seeing each other in a different light. Our first official date was a mix of nostalgia and excitement. We decided to keep it simple and went to our favorite childhood pizza place, sitting across from each other. I couldn't help but smile, thinking about all the years we'd known each other. Justin was as charming as ever, telling me stories from our school days that made me laugh until I was crying. After dinner, we took a walk through the old neighborhood, reminiscing about our adventures as kids. It felt like no time had passed at all, yet everything had changed. We even stood on the street corner where we used to wait for the school bus. I looked into his eyes and knew that our relationship was something special. On our second date, Justin planned a surprise outing. He picked me up in the afternoon and drove us to a nearby beach. It was a beautiful day with the sun shining brightly and a gentle breeze blowing. We strolled along the shore, chatting and laughing, enjoying each other's company. Justin had packed a picnic, and we sat on a blanket eating sandwiches and watching the waves as the sun began to set. He took my hand and led me to the water's edge. We stood there watching the sunset, and in that moment, everything felt mine. After the sun had set, we walked back to the car, hand in hand, reluctant to let go of the magic of the evening. Justin drove me home, and we sat in the car outside my house talking and laughing until late into the night. It was a perfect second date, and I knew then that I was falling for him. For our third date, Justin surprised me by taking me to a cozy little Italian restaurant downtown. The ambon was romantic, with soft lighting and Italian music playing in the background. We shared a delicious meal of pasta and wine, laughing and talking as if we had known each other for years. After dinner, Justin suggested riveting. We went for a walk in the nearby park on that warm summer evening. The park was beautiful, with flowers in full bloom and fireflies dancing in the air. We walked hand in hand, stopping occasionally to sit on a bench and enjoy the view. As we walked, we talked about our hopes and dreams for the future. He told me about his job and his passion for music, while I shared my love for art and travel. It felt like we were opening up to each other in a way we hadn't before, and I knew then that this was something special for our fourth date. Justin took me to a local art gallery, knowing my love for art, and it was as Oakley. The gallery was small and intimate, featuring work by local artists. I was thrilled to explore it with him. We spent hours wandering through the exhibits, discussing our favorite pieces and sharing our thoughts on art and life. After the gallery, Justin surprised me by taking me to a nearby park where a live jazz band was playing. We sat on a blanket under the stars, listening to the music and talking late into the night. It was such a romantic and thoughtful gesture, and I felt incredibly lucky to be with him as the night came to a close. Justin walked me back to my car, and we shared a sweet and tender kiss. Good night. I knew then that by the time our fifth date came around, I was head over heels for him and wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. Justin planned a romantic evening at a fancy restaurant in the city. He picked me up and surprised me with a bouquet of my favorite flowers, roses, which made me feel so special. The restaurant he chose had a cozy atmosphere with dim lighting and soft music, which created the perfect ambience for a romantic dinner. Justin had made reservations, and we were seated at a private table by the window, overlooking the city skyline. Throughout the evening, we shared stories, laughed, and enjoyed delicious food and wine. Justin was really thoughtful. He pulled out my chair, refilled my glass, and made sure I was comfortable and cared for after dinner. He suggested we take a walk along the riverfront. It was a beautiful night, and the city lights reflected off the water, creating a magical scene. We walked hand in hand, talking. We had a great time together, and were laughing and enjoying each other's company as the night came to an end. Justin walked me back to my car, and we shared a passionate kiss. I was really happy and couldn't stop smiling as I drove home. I felt so grateful to have him in my life for our 6th date. My heart was fluttering with excitement. As the dates went on, I felt myself getting closer to Justin. I was excited to see what he had planned for us this time. From our first meeting as kids to our first kiss, each moment had been filled with laughter and love. Justin had a way of making me feel special, and I cherished every moment we spent together. When Justin arrived, he greeted me with a bouquet of flowers and a warm smile. He looked handsome in his suit, and I felt a surge of affection for him. We drove to a fancy restaurant downtown where Justin had made reservations for us. The restaurant was elegant with soft lighting and a romantic atmosphere. He led me to our table, and we sat down to look at the menu. We chatted and laughed, sharing stories and jokes as we enjoyed our meal. After dinner, Justin surprised me by taking me to a nearby park. The park was beautifully lit up with fairy lights, and a gentle breeze rustled through the trees. Justin took my hand and led me to a spot overlooking a lake. We sat down on a bench, and Justin pulled out a small box from his pocket. My heart skipped a beat as he opened the box to reveal a beautiful necklace. It was simple yet elegant, and I knew it was perfect for me. Justin gently placed it around my neck. I could feel tears pricking at the corner of my eyes as I realized how much Justin truly cared for me. He leaned in and kissed me softly, and I melted into his embrace as we sat there wrapped in each other's arms. I knew that this was the man I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Justin was kind. He's loving and thoughtful, and I felt incredibly lucky to have him by my side. Then we decided to move in together, which was a big step for us. We were both excited to start this new chapter in our relationship, but it also came with its challenges. One of the biggest struggles we faced was merging our lifestyles and habits. Justin was very organized and liked things a certain way, while I was more laid back and tended to be a bit messy. We had to find a balance and learn to compromise on things like household chores and decorating our home. Another challenge was managing our finances. We both had our own ways of budgeting and spending money, and we had to learn to align our financial goals and priorities. Despite these challenges, moving in together also brought us closer. We learned more about each other and grew as a couple. It was a learning experience, but one that ultimately strengthened our relationship. The proposal was a moment I'll never forget. He took me to our favorite spot in the city, a beautiful park with a view of the skyline. It was a perfect evening. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted with hues of pink and orange. We walked through the park, and Justin suddenly got down on one knee and pulled out both. He got down on one knee and proposed. He told me how much he loved me and how he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me. It was a really romantic and heartfelt moment, and I was so happy I cried. Of course, I said yes. We were both over the moon when we started planning our wedding. It was more stressful than I ever imagined. Justin's parents are wealthy and offered to buy us a house in any location of our choosing. It was an incredibly generous offer, but there was a catch. My name wouldn't be on the deed. Justin's parents had never been fond of me, and this was their way of exerting control. Over time, the house became a source of conflict between Justin and me. He wanted to accept his parents' offer, viewing it as a practical choice. However, I felt sidelined and disrespected, leading to many arguments and tense discussions about our future. Eventually, I agreed. On top of all that, wedding planning was a huge task. There were so many decisions to make, from the guest list to the venue to the flowers. Justin's parents had strong opinions about everything, which added to the stress. I felt like I was losing control over my own wedding, and it strained our relationship. Despite the challenges we faced, we managed to pull off a beautiful wedding. However, the tensions with Justin's parents and the house issue lingered for a while. A few months after we got married, I found out I was pregnant. I was excited and nervous, but we couldn't wait to welcome our Palcomont. We decided to name our first child Max, a name we both loved. The first few months of my pregnancy were filled with excitement and joy. Justin and I were thrilled to be starting a family together, and we eagerly awaited the arrival of our little one. However, as my pregnancy progressed, I began to experience some unexpected challenges. I struggled with morning sickness, which seemed to last all day and made it difficult to eat or even get out of bed. I was constantly tired, and simple tasks like cooking dinner or doing laundry felt like insurmountable obstacles. Justin was really supportive, but I could see he was worried as I struggled. My belly grew, and so did my discomfort. I had backaches, swollen feet, and heartburn all the time. It was hard to find a comfortable position to sleep in, and I often woke up feeling more tired than when I had gone to bed. Justin did his best to help, rubbing my back and feet and reassuring me that everything would be okay despite the physical challenges. The emotional toll of pregnancy was even greater. I worried constantly about the health and well-being of the baby. I was so anxious about every twinge or ache that I found myself constantly checking my phone for messages from my doctor. Justin was my rock during this time, reassuring me and reminding me that we were in this together. When my due date approached, I was excited to meet our baby, but also anxious about the unknown. Would I be a good mother? Would our baby be healthy? Justin was my constant source of reassurance, holding my hand through every contraction and whispering words of encouragement. When our son Max was finally born, all the struggles of pregnancy faded away. Holding him in my arms, I knew that every moment of discomfort had been worth it. However, Justin's parents saw this as another opportunity to assert control. They had strong opinions about everything, including the name of their grandson. They wanted us to choose a name from their family tradition, but we were set on Max. Justin surprised me by standing firm. He made it clear to his parents that this was our decision to make. If they couldn't respect that, he said he'd think about cutting off contact with them. It was a bold move, but it worked. His parents realized that Justin was serious and eventually gave in, accepting Max as the name for their grandson. It was a turning point in our relationship with Justin's parents. They began to understand that we were a family unit now, and they couldn't dictate our choices. It was a huge relief to know that we could make decisions for our family without interference. As Max grew, so did the challenges in our lives. Justin was always passionate about music, but his parents never approved. They influenced him to take a job at their company, which paid exceptionally well. This job allowed Justin to take care of all the bills, which was a relief for me, as I tended to spend more extravagantly. However, Justin's job came at a cost. He didn't enjoy it, and it took a toll on his happiness despite the financial security it provided. Justin felt unfulfilled. In contrast, I had a regular 9-to-5 job in a corporate setting. It wasn't as glamorous or well-paid as Justin's job, but it gave me a sense of purpose. Justin's job paid well, but it wasn't for me. Despite our different career paths, Justin and I were committed to making our marriage work. We supported each other through the ups and downs until the morning of our wedding day. I was excited and nervous. I sat in front of the mirror, and my hands were trembling slightly. I couldn't believe that the day I had dreamed of since I was a little girl was finally here. At last, the day had come for me to become a bride. I slipped into my wedding dress, feeling like a princess, and took a deep breath to calm my racing heart as I walked down the aisle towards Justin. I was filled with love for this man who had been by my side through thick and thin, and gratitude for all the friends and family who had come to celebrate with us during the ceremony. When we exchanged vows, I had tears in my eyes. I promised to love Justin for the rest of my days, and I meant every word. The reception was a whirlwind of joy and laughter. We danced, we ate, we toasted to our future together. When I looked around at our loved ones' smiling faces, I knew that this was the happiest day of my life after Max was born. I took some time off work to focus on being a mother. I started to feel a bit restless, though. Don't get me wrong, I loved being at home with Max, but I missed the sense of purpose that came with working. I missed interacting with other adults and using my skills in a professional setting. So when Max was about 4 years old, I started looking for a job. Justin suggested that I work at his parents' company, which was a well-gored. It was a well-established firm with lots of opportunities for growth. However, I didn't feel comfortable working there. I wanted my own identity separate from Justin and his family. I felt that working at his parents' company would blur those lines. Instead, I decided to look for a job in the corporate world. That's how I landed a job at a local company. I was excited to get back into the workforce. Justin was really supportive of my decision and encouraged me to pursue my career goals. Starting a new job while also taking care of Max was challenging, but I was determined to make it work. I hired a nanny to help with childcare, and Justin pitched in whenever he could. The person placed in charge of training me was a man named Mark. He was really charming, friendly, and always had a smile on his face. From the moment we met, he made me feel welcome and valued. He was patient and took the time to explain things to me, making sure I understood everything before moving on. As we spent more time together, I couldn't help but notice how easy it was to talk to him. He was a great listener and always had a way of putting me at ease. We shared a lot of laughs during our training sessions, and I found myself looking forward to them. I was looking forward to our time together. I found myself drawn to Mark's attention and the way he made me feel. His charming demeanor and efforts to make me feel special were a welcome change from the routine I had grown tired of at first. His flirtatious behavior was subtle at first, but it became more pronounced over time. He would go out of his way to bring me snacks or coffee, and his compliments on my outfits made me feel noticed in a way I hadn't in a long time. As I reflected on my life, I realized I was stuck in a repetitive cycle that left me feeling unfulfilled. Each day blurred into the next, with little to differentiate them. Taking care of the house, spending time with Justin, and then settling into a predictable evening routine had become the norm. To be honest, I found myself falling into a rut. I was stuck in the same routine day in and day out. The monotony of it all was suffocating. Every day seemed like a carbon copy of the one before, and I was craving something different, something exciting to break the cycle. My life had become a predictable pattern, and I was starting to feel restless. I was craving a change from the mundane existence I had fallen into. The thought of breaking this monotony was incredibly appealing. I was really drawn to the idea of something new and different. So when Mark showed an interest in me, I was immediately interested in him. I was craving a change from my usual routine, and Mark seemed like he could be the one to provide it. As time went on, Mark and I became close friends. We had a lot in common and got on really well, so it was easy to chat with him. We would talk about the latest movies or gossip. It was great to have someone like Mark to talk to about celebrities and pop culture. It was a bit of a change from Justin, who had become a bit distant. He seemed to have lost interest in our relationship, focusing more on work and our kid Max. I appreciated his efforts to make things work between us, but it felt like he was no longer the fun-loving person I had fallen in love with in college. I had fallen in love with Justin in college. The pressures of adult life had taken their toll on him, and his best efforts weren't enough to keep me happy. Our relationship had lost its spark and excitement, and I was longing for the carefree days of our youth. As Justin became more involved in our son Max's life, I found myself gravitating more towards Mark. Our conversations extended beyond work and started spilling into, when I was home at the weekends, it was easy to chat with Mark. Our conversations were a welcome break from the routine of my married life, while Justin was focused on our child and other responsibilities. Mark provided a refreshing change from the monotony. I realized that Justin's focus had shifted almost entirely to Max, leaving little room for our relationship. We still shared intimate moments and occasional deep conversations, but they were overshadowed by the overwhelming responsibility of parenthood. I longed for the carefree days of our youth, when our relationship was the center of our world. Justin's dedication to our son was admirable, but it left me feeling neglected and yearning for a connection that went beyond the duties of parenting. It didn't take long before my outings with Mark turned into something more. What started as innocent activities like watching a movie or taking a walk soon evolved into secret rendezvous at hotels. Both Mark and I were married, so our homes were off limits. We had to find other places to meet, usually resorting to our cars or booking hotel rooms since Justin took care of all the household bills. I used my salary to cover the cost of the hotel rooms, despite feeling guilty for betraying my husband. The affair with Mark brought excitement and thrill into my life. There was something exhilarating about sneaking around. I was still in love with Justin, but I found myself getting addicted to the excitement and passion that Mark brought into my life. As my affair with Mark consumed more of my time and attention, I found myself becoming increasingly distant from Justin. I was constantly glued to my phone, exchanging messages with Mark, and making sure to turn off my location whenever I wasn't at home. Despite my slip-up, Justin seemed pretty oblivious, to be honest. He was totally consumed by work and our son Max. Justin's impending promotion to CEO, as his father was now looking to retire, only added to his workload, leaving him with little time to notice my growing disengagement. That also meant that Max was way closer to Justin than he was to me. While I was happy to see Justin bonding with Max, I couldn't shake the feeling of being sidelined in my own family. I didn't care, though, because I was still high off the thrill Mark gave me once. Justin almost caught me lying. I told him I was working overtime, but the truth was far from it. I was at a hotel with Mark, lost in the thrill of our forbidden affair. Justin then called again a few minutes later, asking I was panicking, so I told him I'd decided not to work late and was on my way home. I could hear the concern in his voice, and it made me feel bad. I'd just gone out of my way to get him food and a thoughtful gift, and I was deceiving him and betraying his trust. I felt really guilty. I ended the call quickly and went to head home. I knew I was playing a dangerous game that could cost me everything, but I just couldn't stop. Thank you for the guidance. Here's the revised version. I even skipped Max's school play to be with Mark. Max was looking forward to seeing me there, but I let him down. I also disappointed myself. I told them I was working hard for a promotion, but I think they knew I wasn't. Max didn't speak to me for days, and I could see him growing even closer to Justin. I feel really guilty. I know now that I hurt my son and damaged my relationship with him. My lies only pushed them further away. I'm starting to realize that. Justin tried to make up for my mistakes by planning surprise date nights, showering me with love, and trying to involve me more in his life and our sons. Despite his efforts, I found it increasingly challenging to reciprocate. My heart and mind were elsewhere, caught up in the web of my affair with Mark and Justin were trying to help. But their gestures felt like brief moments of relief from the reality that our marriage was falling apart. I was too far gone to save it, and my affair with Mark continued. I found myself growing distant from everyone around me. My relationship with Justin had deteriorated, and our sex life had dwindled to nothing. I felt disconnected from those closest to me. I also started to lose touch with Max. I felt lost, consumed by guilt and longing, unable to connect with those who mattered most. My affair with Mark had taken over my life, leaving little room for anything else. As my affair with Mark escalated, it seemed like everyone at the company knew about our secret relationship. Looking back, I'm surprised that none of my colleagues reached out to Justin or Mark's wife to expose the truth. Some of the workers even reached out to Justin or Mark's wife to expose OS for what it was. The guilt was eating me up inside, knowing that my actions were hurting my family and affecting my reputation at work. Despite the risks, I couldn't bring myself to end the affair. My desire for something different and exciting had completely clouded my judgment and was leading me down a destructive path. The company Christmas party was supposed to be a festive event, but it quickly turned into a nightmare. Justin had insisted on coming to my company's party. Now that I think about it, I realize he wanted to come with me because he didn't want me to cheat on him with Mark. We'd arranged for a babysitter to watch Max for the evening. Everything was going well until Mark, in his usual smug manner, decided to approach us. He was incredibly arrogant, implying things and bragging about how he took care of me at work. He even referred to himself as my work husband. I tried to brush off his comments and get him to leave us alone, but he persisted. Justin, who had been trying to contain his anger, finally snapped. He turned red with fury and launched himself. Mark was caught off guard by Justin's reaction and quickly found himself on the receiving end of Justin's rage. It was a chaotic and humiliating scene that I wish had never happened. After Justin's outburst, he beat Mark brutally. I was taken aback by the ferocity of the attack. Everyone just stood there watching, and no one tried to intervene. Some even said that Mark deserved it, but I couldn't bring myself to get involved, fearing I might inadvertently become a target after beating Mark to a pulp. Justin stormed off, and he took the car, leaving me stranded without a way home because we had come together. I tried to stop him, but he was too angry to listen. From what he said during the argument, I realized that he knew about my affair. It was a scary realization, but I knew I had to. I followed him and spoke to him. He said things like, "I've tolerated you long enough," and that I thought he didn't know. I realized that he definitely knew, but I didn't know how much he knew or how long he'd known about me and Mark. Unfortunately, I was left without a ride home. I asked some colleagues for help, but they refused, probably because they thought I deserved it. Eventually, after much pleading, one of them gave me a lift. I asked for help from some colleagues, but most of them refused, probably because they thought I deserved the situation. I even tried to order an Uber, but my card was frozen, which I later realized was probably Justin's doing. Eventually, after much pleading, a colleague agreed to give me a ride home. I managed to get a lift home with a colleague, hoping to confront Justin and explain myself when I arrived. However, Justin and Max weren't there. I let myself in and decided to wait up for Justin. Max wasn't with the babysitter, so I assumed they had returned home. I tried to track Justin's location on my phone, but he had stopped sharing it. I sent him several texts, but he didn't respond. I deleted all messages between me and Mark from my phone in a desperate attempt to make amends. Hours later, Justin finally returned home with Max. He seemed calmer and had even bought Max a lollipop. Justin was surprised to see me and asked why I was there instead of going home with Max. I tried to come up with an excuse, but he saw through it. He asked me why I hadn't gone home with Max, and I knew I had to come clean. I told him everything and even said it had only happened once. I begged for his forgiveness and was in tears. Justin was visibly upset by the revelation. When I confessed, he looked at me with a mix of sadness and disappointment. He told me that he'd known about my affair with Mark for months and that he'd been struggling with how to handle it. Justin said that he'd hoped I'd come clean on my own, but my lies had ruined any chance of him forgiving me. He asked me why I'd cheated and seemed resigned to the fact that our marriage was over. Justin said he didn't care much anymore, as he'd had months to come to terms with the idea that I was no longer the person he thought I was and that I was now a streetwalker. I was so relieved. After I told Justin everything, he said he'd try to save our marriage, at least for Max's sake. I was really grateful and cried tears of joy, thanking him a lot. But then he said he'd sleep in the guest room, and I'd have to quit my job and give a lot of my stuff to charity as punishment for cheating. I was shocked by his demands, but I was ready to do anything to save our marriage. The next day, I resigned from my job and gave my 2 weeks' notice. My boss didn't mind because he was planning to fire me anyway because of the altercation at the dinner party. He said it was all my fault and that he was thinking of even firing Mark. To be honest, I couldn't care less about Mark now. I also suggested couples counseling, which Justin agreed to in the weeks that followed my agreement to donate many of my belongings to charity. I was starting anew, but that sense of renewal was short-lived when I discovered that Justin had been deceiving me. Despite feeling betrayed, he emptied our joint savings account. I tried to focus on making amends for my past mistakes, as I felt that was my due punishment for cheating. Plus, much of the money was his anyway, so I couldn't argue with that. I knew that without Justin, I would struggle. Justin was the breadwinner, and I was financially dependent on him because I spent a lot. He earned almost 9 times what I did. I also realized that losing him would mean losing custody of Max, as Justin earned significantly more, and Max had grown closer to him despite my efforts to rebuild our relationship. Justin suddenly kicked me out one day. I had gone grocery shopping. I decided to take Max with me, but Justin said he was taking me out. I didn't mind because Max didn't seem to want to go with me anyway. I was still working on earning back his trust, but that is a slow process. I went out alone, and when I returned, I found my belongings on the porch. I couldn't believe it. After everything, Justin was kicking me out. I called him desperate to talk to him. I tried to explain, but he didn't pick up. Then I got a text saying he couldn't forgive me and that I had to leave to go stay with my parents. I was really hurt. I packed my things and I felt numb. My eyes were blurred with tears as I arrived at my parents' house. They were shocked. I was still reeling from the fact that Justin had. My parents welcomed me back without asking for details. It was a relief not to have to explain myself immediately, but that respite was short-lived before the day even ended. Justin took matters into his own hands. He created a group chat that included me, my parents, and everyone else that we knew. He shared some private messages and photos that I had thought were hidden or locked away. The betrayal cut deep, adding a new layer of humiliation and pain to the already devastating situation. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly betrayed. My parents were shocked and saddened by the revelation. They tried to console me as best they could, but they didn't pry. Their silence spoke volumes. I could see the disappointment in their eyes, and it only added to my shame. Justin's actions were deliberate and calculated. He wanted to hurt me to show the world what I had done. It was a cruel and vindictive move. It shattered any remaining hope I had of reconciliation. The days following were crazy. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from my in-law. He was deliberate and calculated in his actions. He wanted to hurt me, to show the world what I had done. It was a cruel and vindictive move that shattered any remaining hope I had of reconciliation. In the days that followed, everything was crazy. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from my in-laws. Their words were full of disdain. They said I never deserved Justin. They said I was always for the streets. Then Justin sent me a message saying he would be serving me with divorce papers soon. My friends also sent me messages, full of disappointment and judgment. I felt the weight of their words, adding to the overwhelming emotions I was already feeling. Dealing with my friends, who I thought would offer comfort or understanding, were expressing their disappointment. It was a lonely feeling, knowing I had let down not just my husband, but everyone who cared about us. But the final blow came from Mark. He had previously blocked me, but he unblocked me and accused me of being a vindictive person. He claimed I had sent screenshots and pictures of our conversations to his wife. He called me a vindictive person. He said his marriage was now in jeopardy, so I had to set the record straight. I explained that it was likely Justin who had exposed our affair, not me. Now, with my finances in ruins and my marriage shattered, I have to depend on my parents for support. It's a humbling experience, facing the consequences of my actions and realizing the depth of the hurt I caused. I also can't see my child in Justin's distant demeanor, even to the pain he won't show. I'd appreciate it if you could talk to me, unless it's for something important. I also know I'm facing an uphill battle in the divorce proceedings. Justin is likely to get custody, and I will lose so much more than just my marriage. My brother is a lawyer, but he can't represent me due to a conflict of interest and his lack of expertise in divorces. So I guess my message to you is please don't cheat. It's honestly not worth it at all. Thanks for listening.